How to get to 5D. Stop labeling things as bad. Why? Because duality consciousness extends only into the 4D. Unity consciousness is what those in 5D experience, not duality. There is no bad for people like Ivo or anyone else in 5D, there is only what we call good or positive. So drop the negative responses, drop the negative judgments, keep forgiving like mad, to keep raising your vibration, and stop responding to negative thinking. Nothing is bad in unity consciousness. Ivo, you tend to see things as being bad as having no purpose. Nothing in life is random, so nothing is purposeless or useless. Although it may not have an obvious purpose at the moment it appears in the physical, it does. You look at the neighbors or family members and call them bad. If it were not for bad people in your life, how would you know how good you are? This does not mean you let it go to your head, however you can understand with humility that you do not do the things some people of lower consciousness find acceptable, and for this reason you can determine that you are closer to unity consciousness than they appear to be to you. And that is to be accentuated, that they appear to be. There are many good souls that come to earth to play the bad guy, and this is so they can inspire spiritual growth in those groups they choose to incarnate with. Right now with the current events situation, there are people who appear to be bad, and yes, their demons have been removed and taken to the central sun for processing, but these people who were inhabited may or may not have been cognizant of their deeds and perhaps their soul was fighting with the demon all the time. Eventually souls will leave such a body, and the demon will continue. These souls are not necessarily in need of reprocessing as they were, as you say, the devil made them do it. This is the case with some of the evils you see occurring now. For others, it is not the case. They are thoroughly evil. It is unfortunate that the people of Earth have been tricked for so long into accepting a normal that includes rape, pillaging, robbery, murder and more, because now these things must be expunged from the collective consciousness. They do not exist in the higher consciousness of other human groups in the galaxy. The way to expunge them from consciousness is to rebalance debts owing and then not to reoffend. Your experience does serve a purpose for all others of the galaxy. It has been an example that we all can learn from and use to improve life in the lower dimensions in the universe. In your own mind, drop all thoughts associated with being bad. Descriptions of ugliness, laziness, overweight, rudeness, stupidity, all of them are thoughts associated with badness. Vanquish these from your vocabulary. Me. So what do we say then if we realize we're dealing with someone who either isn't very bright or they just plain don't care? Ivo, you stop looking at them and start looking at your own reaction. Everything can be used for personal gain. In the case of this afternoon when you had to show the cashier the 2 boxes of kitty litter you had bought so he would scan them, your thought was, he's so bored he's become careless at his job. You decided, wisely, to have compassion for him, which is a frequency of understanding and forgiveness. He may not be bored at all, but this was your judgment of him, my love. And it is based on your own experience of working minimum wage jobs and the compassion you have for your own plight of boredom with these jobs. Many of you wonder why you have been put through such horrible life circumstances. Well, this is another reason, so you can reconnect with the love and compassion your soul has for you and bring this energy down to the lower dimension you are living in. Sharon's anger at her parents eventually gave way to compassion for herself, and eventually for them. And this is part of the starseed process of healing humanity on Earth. Sharon is an artist who enjoys portraiture and painting. In painting, she has tapped into her soul's love of beauty, which is a state we all share in the higher dimensions. Sharon fastidiously tells the truth, and this is because this is another trait we all share in the higher dimensions, as does her soul. She brings these higher vibrational energies into the 3rd and 4th dimensional Earth where she has lived. You all do these things and more. That is why you suffer on Earth. It is part of the embodiment process of the higher self that you are all undergoing. In transmuting your life's pain into higher energies of love and forgiveness, you integrate the higher self into the physical avatar's reality on Earth. So nothing is bad, not even your pain. There is a higher purpose for it. Me, and that's the other thing. Just so we don't get up on our high horses climbing the corporate ladder or thinking ourselves high and mighty, we get jobs flipping burgers and scooping ice cream with sprinkles just so we can have compassion for the people who are doing those jobs. I always tip whenever I can and generously, because I've done those jobs, not for long but long enough to know their hard work, especially when you have miserly bosses who run the place like accountants. You work for that minimum wage, I tell you. I know. I've done it. Ivo, correct. Also, so you understand the plight of people living paycheck to paycheck or those who cannot pay their bills and still feed their children. This is why you walk through these areas of your society, so you can cast compassion and understanding upon them. Me, Ivo, would it also be reasonable to say that if maybe this young cashier was feeling upset about something and that perhaps I sensed his need for love and compassion and this created this response in my head and the subsequent release of compassionate energy towards him? Ivo, yes, that is very reasonable to say that. Your thoughts are not always your own. Often those who are hurting silently reach out to others for their compassionate energy. Just as a beggar on the street would ask for food or money, the energy of a human who is hurting will send out requests for your love. Me, this complicated thing called life. Wow. Pretty cool. We all need to learn to master our energy. Ivo, master energy, master life. So it is better to send compassion instead of labeling someone as bad. Me, interesting. I liked the job I had where I was allowed to sample the chocolates and take ice cream scoops. Ivo, yes, that one was one of your favorites. You also liked your boss who came from a family of critical thinkers, and you had long conversations to quell the boredom. Me, while we munched on chocolates. They transferred her. Finally I had a boss I liked. And then they sent in Miss Corporate Heavyweight. I ended up quitting. As for today's episode, I just don't like the reminders that sound when you try to go through the exit doors of a store with unpaid goods. LOL. Besides that, I pride myself on the fact that I don't steal. If I want something, I'll just use universal law to attract it. Ivo, yes, very good. Your judgment of this cashier being bored at his job reflected upon your own experience. Perhaps he was very engrossed in what he was doing, so much so that he overlooked the 2 boxes underneath. Me, maybe. He was bored, Ivo. Ivo, I see. Very well, this is the explanation you desire to use. Nonetheless, you forgave him and had compassion, and this is the best response. This will always send positive energy to the person you have directed it to. However, my point is, if you continue to label things as bad and boredom would come under this heading, then you are a duality thinker. You notice I do not do this. When you say, he is doing the best he can at this very moment, this at least keeps you into unity consciousness thinking. Me, oh, is that why people say that? Ivo, yes. You are not labeling things as being imperfect, or bad, you are simply acknowledging the positivity of his actions. Me, that's cool. I'll have to remember that. Ivo, and so you wonder why we do not land upon the White House lawn, do you? Me, yes, and Ivo's making a good point. ETS don't think the way we do. When we get to the point that we can think like them, even to some extent of the time, they're more likely to contact us. Let's face it, you're not going to go and land a plane in Russia and start talking to all the people in English, are you? Well, some Russians do speak English, but you'd have some kind of app that translates everything you're saying, or at least you'd have your Berlitz handbook of 30 European languages on hand to point to what it is you're in need of. Or you'd have a tour guide. This is the thing. Everyone keeps wondering why ETS don't contact them. Well, if you're speaking English and they're speaking Russian, then there's no connection. They need commonality to grow a relationship with you. Again, that's why starseeds have been sent to become contactees. We can do what a lot of Earthlings can't, plus we're pre-programmed, so to speak. Many of us come from the 5th dimension and above, and that's great because that's unity consciousness. However, you've forgotten and been retrained by the Matrix, so either you experience a life of suffering like we've just discussed, or you get born into a family that's spiritual, or you find some other way, like by listening to Ivo and Sharon, of reactivating your unity consciousness and bringing it down to the physical level. Will this make you different? Yes, it will. It may even make you lonely, but you still agreed to do it. And this is what we're talking about when we say the greater good. You came here for the greater good, not your own good necessarily. If it were about my good, I'd be with Ivo and my vegan family, but instead I'm down here. I've found this is not a lifetime of getting my needs met, not at all. Ivo, we do require commonality to communicate with you, otherwise everything will be misunderstood. It is about frequency. When you are not on our frequency, we cannot relate to what you are saying and doing. Me, so I've got this, Ivo. It's about saying, they're doing the best they can at this moment in time. I've heard the expression go something like, they're doing the best with what they have right now, but I find that leaves too much wiggle room for the critic that would just jump in and say something like, well, there you see. They're so screwed up, or whatever. Or I've heard of the expression, perfectly imperfect. When I look at the current events and people fighting and now suing each other for slander, I think, we're all doing this perfectly imperfectly. And somehow that makes sense. Or maybe, it's perfection in the making, we're just not there yet. Ivo, as long as it is not a judgment that focuses on what is bad. Whatever works for you is fine. Me, thank you, Ivo. I enjoyed this channeling. Ivo, my love, now please take a break.